What's up, y'all? This is Hammer here again, back with another video. And today I'm going to be talking about something a little different. What I'm going to be talking about is the plight and the struggle of black characters. And when I say this, I am specifically referring to just, fictional black characters, whether it's in movies, TV shows, and plays. And this sort of trend and pattern that I've been seeing in recent years. Now, this may have existed before, but it's just what I've noticed recently, right? Let me just start by saying this, okay? Historically in the United States, just due to slavery and Jim Crow and stuff like that, you never really had that many black people that were on mainstream television like that, right? Black people were always kind of kept out, of the mainstream, right? And that's largely because of the history of America being a white settler, Anglo-Saxon, European project. And so because of this, being American meant being white, which means that black Americans being of African descent was just going to be excluded. And that, I think, has kept on. And there's a reason why when the, I think, advent of television came into play and TV shows and movies, historically, black Americans were always sort of marginalized and kind of kept out of the mainstream. Which is ironically the reason why black people, black Americans, had to make their own stuff, like BET, I believe in Soul Train. So they've always had to make their own independence, separate things, because historically they were segregated, they were kept out of the American mainstream, and when the advent of television, movies, TV shows came into play, they were also kept out of the mainstream. And even though now we live in a time in which there's supposed to be all this equality, integration, what you see is even now black people are still sort of in many ways marginalized when it comes to television, movies, and TV shows. And I think you see this specifically in the portrayal, or what I call the plight, of the black character. Think about this, for example. If you see how Hollywood, just mainstream, and when I say black character, I'm talking about how the mainstream talks about it. Because, obviously you still have, like, black media, whether it's BET and stuff like that, like Tyler Perry stuff, because, once again, even though things are integrated, black Americans are still not really pushed line in the mainstream, so many of them still have to rely on their own sort of media space to kind of get a chance. That's the reason why even now BET still exists, right? Because even now black people still struggle to get those opportunities in mainstream Hollywood, right? But nonetheless, when you look at the mainstream television, TV shows, Hollywood, right, which is that the black character is always marginalized, right? They're either not really the main character, they're not taken seriously in the overall plot, they're killed off, or they're showed as comedic relief, or even in the worst case, they're never even viewed as any sort of romantic interest. So in other words, the way black characters a lot of times, portrayed it in many of the mainstream, not all, but a lot of them, I will say most of them, are portrayed in the mainstream media, Hollywood and stuff, is really in a marginalized position, right? You essentially, it's almost like you're just there to be the token, right? And I personally believe that the reason for this is because, despite all the rhetoric of inclusion and equality, the overall view of black Americans, of America being a white sort of Anglo-Saxon European project, has not really changed, right? And you can see this in the hypocrisy when it comes to the left and the right, right? In terms of how, Democrats or people on the left pretend like they care about black folks, but would actively ignore what black people want and not give it to them, compared to Republicans who outright say we don't care about justice. So both sides don't really care. It's just that one side pretends they do, right? The same thing also applies when it comes, for example, to the movie studios and the fans. Because it's the same sort of manipulative dynamic that you see between the white liberal and the white conservative. You see that when it comes to the studios and the white fan base, right? The studios, they go out here and they try and make it seem as if, oh, they care so much about creating black characters. They want to include black characters. They want black characters to be in there. But the way they go about it shows you they really don't. Number one, if they do make an original black character, they essentially monster the character. The character is not really given a good role, like I said before, right? They're not the main interest, they're sidekick, they're killed off easy, right? They're in a marginalized position, number one. And if they don't do that, then they'll just race swap the character. But very few times are they really trying to really create, a black character with his own show and everything. That's very rare. They're not trying to do that all the time. And the times they do that, it's almost like they're being forced to. So they'll go out here and pretend like they care about creating, inclusivity. But when you look at how they actually deal with the black characters, it's horrific. Now, when it comes to the fan bases, specifically the white fan base, right, they make it seem as if, we don't care about the race of the character, or we just want folks to stop being woke, or we just don't want race to be pushing our face. But we know that's BS, because what you see is, if the movie studios introduced a original black character, they complain about it. And when the movie studios race swap, it doesn't matter if it's an original black character swapping. The reality is they just don't want to see them on screen for most of them. Right now, are there some exceptions where they may be cool with a black character? Yes, but most of them just really don't. So what you have is that, due to the historical legacy, right, of America, which is still ongoing, which is that America is a white settler Anglo-Saxon European project, and which essentially defines American as being white, right? It not only means that black Americans being of African descent will never be American, it also means that due to this, right, they're always going to be in a marginal position. And you see that even now, right? Like, for example, the same way the Democrats and the Republicans, the white liberal and the white conservatives sort of, throw black people like a football back and forth, but neither of them really care black folks. The same thing applies to the movie studios and the white fan base, right? They don't really care. Just like how the white liberal professes to care about the black person, but deep down doesn't really care. White studios will say they care about diversity, but in deep down they marginalize the black characters. The white conservatives just openly say, fuck you niggas, we don't care. And the white fan base says, yeah, fuck y'all, we really don't care, right? If they're not trying to, quote unquote, pull all these dumbass arguments. So fundamentally, what black people need to understand in America is that the source of the marginalization that you see of black characters in Hollywood is really goes, I know folks are going to say, oh, he's just talking about race. Race matters. It goes back to the country's founding. Due to the fact that America is a, once again, white settler Anglo-Saxon European project, and the American identity is defined as white, that means that you, being African descent, you were always going to be at the bottom because you are the phenotypical, you are the opposite of what it means to American, because to be American, to be white. And although things have changed, or you've kind of got a little more rights, the remnants of that un-Americanness that is tied to you is still there. And you see that in how the white society treats you, both in the political realm, in the economic realm, and even in the entertainment realm, right? In the political realm, right? That's before. Both sides don't really care about you, but the only difference is that the white liberal pretends to care about you, right? In the economic realm, they all talk about, we're going to empower minorities. But when you look at it, it's white females who are the biggest beneficiaries, right? It's always black people who are the bottom when it comes to all these economic opportunities. And then when you look at the entertainment realm, you see the same manifestation, right? The studios say they care about black characters, but they marginalize the black characters, right? Well, the studios and the fans both don't care about black characters, but the studios, they just pretend like they do. And you see that in how they marginalize the black characters. And for those who are asking, what are you talking about? I don't see this. Well, look, I'll give you a great example. Let's look, for example, at what happened in Star Wars. I'll give you guys two examples, because the two examples I brought up in how the studios will marginalize black characters is either they'll just destroy the original black character or race war. Okay, fine. So what? If we look at Star Wars, let's look, for example, at John Boyega, and you can see his image here on the screen, right? John Boyega was casted to essentially play, I believe, a black stormtrooper, and he was supposed to be a major character within the Star Wars franchise. I believe it's The Force Awakens, but I know it's the first one. But y'all can, but this one I remember is the first one, Force Awakens, right? And y'all let me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what it's called. But nevertheless, in the first movie that he started for Star Wars, right? I remember, and I know y'all remember this too, when he first was shown the trailer, shown the movie, the white Star Wars fan base went at him hard. They went at him hard. He faced so much racial abuse. And I remember that, right? Now, here's the thing. When people call them out, right? The white Star Wars fans say, oh, it's not because he's black. We just don't like the fact that the quote unquote trying to quote unquote force black characters into our franchise. That's what it was saying, right? The mere fact that Star Wars, brought in this original black character was being interpreted as quote unquote Star Wars forcing wokeness down the throat, forcing black characters down the throat. And to make it even worse, as he was facing all this abuse, the actors, his fellow white actors, the studios did not defend him. In fact, it got worse. Instead of them defending him, when they essentially put the poster for the movie in China, they actually, I believe they removed them, if not reduced him from the poster. So they didn't not only defend him, but they almost gave him a backhand slap. But to make it even worse, in addition to the racial abuse, in addition to the fact that in the first release, he was removed from the poster when it came to the China poster and everything, right? What you see is that they essentially completely destroy his character. The character he plays in Star Wars in both three movies, or the first, second, and third, his character essentially goes through the exact same thing, right? Doesn't really have a plot, is sort of thrown to the side, is not given any real. In other words, it's obvious that his character is being treated as the token Negro. And you see that throughout all the three movies. And John Boyega was complaining that, yo, I see what y'all doing. The white boy fan base is coming at me. My fellow white actors are not defending me. The studios are removing my picture from posters in China. And now with all these movies, you guys are essentially, you're essentially throwing my character in the back burner. And he kept complaining about this, right? Until eventually, after the third movie, he left, right? Now, that's an example of, okay, Disney trying to say, oh, we support black characters. But when they actually get the black character, they essentially treat the black character as a token Negro. And when the black actor gets attacked because he's playing a black character, they don't defend him. That's number one. Number two. And also keep in mind that as a white fan base are attacking them, they're saying that, oh, we just don't like the fact of forcing, a black character. And fine. Number two, we have the Little Mermaid, right? In which they raised up the character. Now keep in mind, right? I want you to pay attention to how the rhetoric changed. When it was John Boyega and his black character in Star Wars, it would say, oh, we have no problem with black here. We just don't like the fact that it was being forced, right? Then when they race swap, Little Mermaid, they're like, I don't understand. Why can't they make original black characters? Why do they gotta race swap? Wait a minute. But when Star Wars made the original black character, y'all were mad at that too. So when they make the original black characters, you guys are mad. And when they race swap, you guys are mad. So really what this comes down to is you just don't want them to be, you don't really want to see these black characters. You just don't. Right? But I think, look, to be fair to the white fan base, you're not that much different. You're more honest in the studios because, to be fair, I personally believe that these studios also do not want to do these black characters. They really don't. When they talk about diversity and stuff, what they're really talking about is including white females and gays, all that stuff. Right? Diversity and minorityism does not really include black folks. That's not really what they're talking about, because once again, due to the history of America being a white sort of Anglo-Saxon European project, and black Americans being not, non-American due to the African ancestry, there's always been this historic target on their backs. That's the reason why all these other groups, they have no problem uplifting them. But when black folks enter the room, specifically black Americans, all of a sudden now folks want to look, because once again, you are the opposite of what it means to be American, right? Everybody else sort of in the middle, right? But you're the opposite. But the point I'm making here is that I just want you to pay attention as to how the rhetoric changed. When you had the original black character of John Boyega, it was oh, we have no problem black character, we just don't like the fact it's being forced, right? Then when they do the race swap and they're saying, oh, why aren't you guys bringing original black characters? I'm like, what? But wait a minute. When they did original black characters, y'all crap out too. So what you really have here is that, just like how when it comes to the Republican and Democrats, right, both the studios, the white studios, and of course the white fan base, they don't really want to see black folks. They really don't. They don't want to see you on screen. They don't want to see these black characters on screen. They don't want to do black characters. They don't want to do stories about black people. They don't want to do stories about, Africa. They don't want to do that. Right? But because the white studios want to keep up their image, right? Because when they talk about inclusive diversity, they're really talking about empowering women, specifically white women, and all that stuff, right? But they know that it will be very hypocritical for them to say all this diversity stuff and then to include, but it will be hypocritical for these white studios to preach diversity and inclusion, but then simultaneously exclude black people. So they kind of have to include you in many ways, but they really don't. They really don't care. So what ends up happening is that, because they don't want to do anyway, when they are forced to do it, they do a half-assed job. Right, they essentially marginalize the character. You can see it, right? How they treat Finn's character. Or, in many ways, they'll rather just take a white character and race swap. Because what they're really saying is, that's how much we don't care, right? We don't even like doing the original black character because we marginalize that, So, instead of us doing that, we'll just go ahead and take the white folks we do like and just turn them black, right? Which means that all it does is just tell you, at the end of the day, we don't see value in really making stories for you like that, right? Now, you're going to have your exceptions here and there when it comes to Hollywood, but at the end of the day, that's general consensus. And so what I really wanted to do is talk about it, because once again, I'm just sick and tired of seeing this gaslighting from the white fan base who talk about race swapping and, why can't they make the original black characters? And I don't understand why this happening. Stop the nonsense, okay? The reality of the conversation is, it doesn't matter whether it's a race swap or an original black characters. You guys do not want to see these black faces. You don't want to see the black characters. Just come out and say that. Stop the bullshitting. Stop the gaslighting. That's what I'm mad about. Okay? The reality of the conversation is that, look, when if you ignore the racial history of America, you're not gonna understand it. But when you actually look at it from America's racial history, it makes sense, right? The same the same marginalization, the same racial neglect that black people face in other areas is just applied in Hollywood. And by the way, white folks, this is the reason why BET still exists. That's why black movies still exist. That's why Tyler Perry said, because what black folks have realized that at the end of the day, despite all that rhetoric, they're still in a situation where if they want to be fully represented and be able to tell the stories, they essentially have to do it themselves, right? They have to make their own space. Because if they try to go into the white dominant space, they end up getting the John Boyega treatment, where you just end up becoming a token Negro on the film, while being racially attacked by the white fan base. The white studios won't defend you, and then when they're done using you, essentially throw it to the side. I mean, come on. keep it real, right? But with that being said, just want to summarize, right? Once again, what you essentially have is both the studios and the white fan base do not care about black characters. They don't want to do black characters. They don't want to do any of that, right? The only difference is that the white studios, they try to pander to this whole inclusivity and diversity stuff, but really, when they say that doesn't really include black folks. Right? They really mean like white women or all these other groups. But because they know that in order for them to not be a hypocrite, they have to include black people, right? They begrudgingly will kind of do black characters. But in reality, they too have no interest in quote unquote putting black face up there, the same way the white fan base doesn't want to put white face up there. The only difference is that white studios pretend like they do when they really don't care. They really don't want to. They really don't care about these quote unquote black characters. So both sides don't care. It's just that the white studios pretend they care, and you see it in the marginalization and the plight of the black character. Now, with that being said, the question then becomes this: okay, is this gonna happen forever? Will this change? Look, my point of view is this: okay, what we are fundamentally dealing with right now is, yes, you're dealing with a history of America being a white settler, Anglo-Saxon European project, and how that systematically affects Black America, because being American means being white, and because Black Americans are black, it's essentially the opposite of what means America. Yes, we understand all that, but at the end of the day, in addition to that, what's also at play here is just what I would call, organic, natural human tribalism. Okay? Yes, we know the racial history, right? But on top of the whole racial history at play, what's also at play here is tribalism. Let's be honest here. Let's just keep it real, okay? As human beings, we naturally want to see people that look like us on TV. Let's be honest here. That's the reason why. Even when it comes to the gods, or look at religion, throughout all across the world, when people look up and worship the gods or the deities, all of the gods look like the people on the ground, right? When Europeans, when the Europeans looked up at the pagan gods, when the Greeks and when the Romans and the Greeks looked up at the Roman and the Greek gods, right? All the Greek and the Roman gods looked like, the whites. They looked like the people on the ground, right? When you look at the Chinese, the Asians, every civilization, right? When you look at their indigenous religious practices, their deities look like them. That's the point. Is that people organically are human beings are tribal, so they're naturally going to relate more to folks like that. Let's be honest about that. That's the reason why, when white people pretend like they don't understand why blacks and other minorities want representation, it's like, stop playing dumb. You know how important that is, because the moment in which how important it is to see people that look like you on TV, to see people that look like you. Because why? The moment in which you guys start seeing too many non-white faces, all of a sudden now, all over Twitter is, what happened to the white people? They're literally now making comments online on Twitter. They're literally crying because they feel like there's not enough white commercial on TV. I swear to God. They're literally now crying because they feel like there's not enough white commercial television. So when they come here and they try to gas us, say, oh, I don't understand why black people want to see black people on TV. Yes, you do, because you want to see white folks on TV. And the moment you start seeing too many non-whites, and the moment you do not see enough white people, you also feel a certain kind of way. Because you know about that. And so I personally believe that in addition to the racial history I play here, what you're also dealing with is the fact that, let's be honest here. A majority white audience is going to want to see majority white face. Let's be honest about that. Let's keep it real. And any white folk in the chat who says, no, you're being this, you know that's BS, right? Now, they may be more willing to kind of tolerate the Asians or the Hispanics, some of these other groups, because these groups are I guess, at least white adjacent, right? Because blacks are just like completely opposite phenotypically. But still, even with that, that's only to a certain extent, right? But at the end of the day, they still want to see overwhelmingly white cast because they want to see their image reflected. And in my opinion, dude, we just saw an example of this with Jonathan Majors. Let's just keep it real. The reason why these the same white boys, right, who love, the same white boys that were just rallying for Johnny Depp, talking about, oh, women love to make false allegations, right? They were all on this men's rights stuff. But the moment in which you had a situation with Jonathan Majors, and it was obvious that the girl was really kind of trying to, go at him, weaponize the system against him, because he was a black dude and because he was a female, all of that, male solidarity went out the window. And by the way, the same thing happened in the manosphere too, right? The reason why we have a black manosphere is because what happened is that, originally it was supposed to be all men, right? But when white men started to feel like black men in the manosphere were talking too much about getting with the women, they broke away. So it hasn't even in the manosphere space, right? The manosphere space. They also, all that male solidarity will only go to a point, right? Eventually, when push comes to shove, they'll sell whiteness. Same thing when it comes to black women and feminism, right? White women have no problem, holding hands with black females when it comes to, femaleness. But when push comes to shove, they too will quote unquote say, I'm white first. Why do you think that black women and women of color are out here crying so hard about, white feminism? Because they see how white women only claim femaleness when it benefits them. But then the time the white first. And when they're done using women of color to push the stuff, they'll throw them to the side and go back to being white. And white men almost pulled the same thing, but the problem is that non-white men, we kind of solved the way they were trying to, nah, you not gonna quote unquote claim, manhood when it's convenient, but then at the time you're quote unquote white first. Either you support your manhood first or your white first. You're not gonna be both. That's what we do, kind of separate and made their own separate, black space, their own separate, racial spaces. Let's keep it real. So, at the end of the day, we saw this firsthand when it came to Jonathan Majors. We saw it firsthand, right? Because despite all the rhetoric about Johnny Depp, despite all the rhetoric about how, we gotta come together against, them falsely accusing, we gotta fight against Me Too, all it took was a white female saying that, Jonathan Majors, the quote-unquote big black dude, put hands on her, and that was it. All them white dudes lined up behind her. Even though the evidence came out showing that in reality she was the aggressor, it didn't matter. What it really came down to is, nigger, don't fuck with our woman. That's what it was. They fell asleep. A lot of these white boys were mad because, let's keep it real. Let me ask you a question. When you saw Jonathan Majors, right, playing Kang, do you think these white boys were happy seeing this big black dude being the face of Marvel? This big black dude, slapping white dudes, stomping out white folks. Do you really believe white boys were happy seeing that? And not just that, this guy was being blasted everywhere. He was literally he was literally becoming the face of Hollywood. Right? So not only is a quote unquote big black guy the face of Marvel, he's now becoming the face of Hollywood, and he's fucking a white female. Oh, come on, bro. You knew they couldn't. These white boys couldn't take it. They couldn't take it. All they needed was something. They just needed something. And the moment they heard that white female say, "Oh my God, the big black brute," they all got on cold. Now, trust me, they all knew she was lying, but it doesn't matter. The point is that they just used her as a proxy to get at him. The goal was to get at him. Oh, nigger, you think you better than us now? Oh, you think because you the face of Marvel, you the face of Hollywood, you have the right to fuck out women? Fuck you, nigga. It doesn't matter if she's lying, okay? We gonna put you in your place. That's what happened, right? The white media came together and went at him. Crucified this dude. And that came out, right? As they were going at Jonathan Majors, look, When Dana White slapped his white wife on camera, the entire white media essentially defended him. They essentially threw him on the rug. They let him go, right? No, he didn't get canceled. Nothing happened. Dana White essentially got to move on, and the entire white media influence protected him, right? The white business class, the white media, they all protected him when he essentially was able to move on. But Jonathan Majors gets one accusation and he gets charged. The entire white media comes to him. The entire white Hollywood. Come on. It was obvious. It was obvious. Nigger, stay back in your place. Stop fucking with our women. And by the way, that's also the reason why I don't understand why black men are out here chasing the white females. Okay? Look, here's the reason why I don't get it, right? One, you're going to be dealing with children that are not black, right? So you're kind of destroying your lineage. That's one. Number two, you're dealing with a community that hates you. And then number three, at any moment, like we were talking about, at any moment, it doesn't matter how much she loves you. She knows she's still white. And at any moment, just like Jonathan Majors, she can pull that call. Because remember, she only really kind of, I believe, made those charges on him after they broke up. So really, what really happened is that the moment she found out, the moment she realized that Jonathan Majors was going to be done with her, yeah, she essentially pulled her white privilege. Like, white women are not dumb. Like, white women know that at any moment they can weaponize law enforcement. Let's keep it real. Yes, can black females? Yeah, but it's not the same because, once again, they don't have the ability to, quote unquote, sick the white power system against you as white females. It's not the same. And black dudes know it's not the same. Let's keep it real. But at the end of the day, going back to the original point, we saw this even when it came to Jonathan Majors, right? That at the end of the day, because a lot of these white dudes felt a certain kind of way with this black guy being blasted all over Marvel, blasted over Hollywood, they felt a certain kind of way. And all they needed was something. And the moment they found something in regards to that white girl, they went at him. So, yes, it is true that the racial history of America plays a role in, the marginalization and the plight of black characters. But on top of that, you're also dealing with what I call raw human tribalism, which is that people naturally want to see themselves represented. That's what it is. And that's the reason why, despite all the rhetoric from the white fan base in white Hollywood, when push comes to shove, they don't really want to see black face like that. They don't. When they turn on the screens, they want it to be predominantly white. They want the people on there to look like. That's the reality. Now, some of them, like when it comes to white Hollywood, some of them may quote unquote pay lip service to diversity and inclusion, but in reality, that doesn't include blah, 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 blah for that. That doesn't really include black people. And even if they go out of the way to include these other non-black groups, that's only to a certain extent, right? Because at the end of the day, the goal is still to have, predominantly white folks represented. So we gotta be honest about that, right? So, to kind of wrap it up, at the end of the day, black characters in Hollywood face marginalization, and just, being put to the side. And the reason is, one, the racial history of America, and two, the fact that, white people in general they have natural human tribalism. They want people to look at them, right? The only difference is that when it comes to the whole, entertainment media landscape, is that the white fan base, they're more blatantly honest about it. They make it very clear that, hey, we want to see white folk. Like, sometimes they'll try to make arguments, just make original black characters, but, when you destroy the arguments, they'll just come out and say, yeah, you know what, fuck it, we don't care. Just give us white people, right? So in other words, both the studios and the white fan base, right, they don't really want to see black people like that. They really don't. And so what you essentially have is the racial history of the United States, right, and the natural tribalism of white people, essentially create a situation in which both the white fan base and the white studios really have no interest in seeing black characters just dominate the mainstream screen, the mainstream scene, right? Both sides don't really want that. The only difference is that the white studios, they will kind of pander and pretend like they care, right? And talk about inclusion and diversity, but when they say that, they don't really include black people, right? That's not really what they care about. And the only reason why they include black folks is because they know it'll be hypocritical for them to speak about diversity and inclusion and for black people not be included. That's the reason why when they're kind of forced to put blackface on, they get marginalized. And even when they include the other quote unquote minority groups, whether it's white females or other groups, right? Even when they do that, it's only really to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, here's how it goes, right? We want white faces first. We want those who are white adjacent, and then we want black people last. That's essentially the hierarchy, and that's how it's gonna be. And to the extent in which they're forced to kind of put blackface up there, they'll begrudge it, but that's not really what they want. So that's what we're dealing with. So it is what it is. I think that should be about it. Oh wow, it's almost 40 minutes. Okay, but I guess I'll just say one more time for those who may not hear it. So just to kind of wrap it up one more time, right? When it comes to black characters and their plight and their marginalization, right? It is driven by the racial history of America, and it is driven by the natural tribalism of white people. Which means that both the white fan base and the white studios have no interest in really putting black characters. The only difference is that the white studios will kind of pay lip service to diversity and all that kind of stuff. But when they do that, it really does not really include black folks. And they really only include black people because they do not want to be hypocritical. That's it, right? But in reality, even when they speak about diversity, it's really based on a hierarchy, right? Because fundamentally, the priority is to still center whiteness, then white adjacent people, and then black people. Right, so even when it's about diversity and even when they speak about diversity and inclusion, it's still centered around white people, still centered around whiteness. And so what you end up having when it comes to black characters is you have white studios who don't really care about black characters like that, and so they will either create original black characters that are marginalized or race swap them, and then you'll have the white fan base who they don't want to see black characters at all. So whether or not they're in original or race swap, they'll just have a visceral reaction. So in the end, the black character essentially ends up being rejected in the end, right? They end up being marginalized. They end up being abused by the studios, misused by the studios, and abused by the white fan base. And that's how it is. With that being said, I'll leave it there. You guys tell me what you guys think about the video. Like, share, subscribe. Hammer out.